Gather close. I have a story for you tonight. A story that's been told for generations, passed from storyteller to storyteller, from grandmother to grandchild, all the way to you. And listen, this one will change how you think about power. Because here's the thing, we're always told that greatness is born into you, that you need the right blood, the right name, the right family. But what if that's not true at all? In an ancient kingdom called Ayo, where the Niger River bent like a woman's arm, where baobab trees grew so tall they seemed to touch the clouds, there stood a palace, not just any palace. This palace had seen 100 generations of kings. 100. The walls, they remembered everything, every victory, every coronation, every moment of power. And in that palace, there was a crown. Now, this crown, not something a blacksmith forged, not something a goldsmith made. No.
The ancestors blessed this crown. Some say the Orishas themselves, the ancient gods, breathed power into it. And here's what happened when you wore it. You became wise. You became just. And if your heart was false, the crown would reject you. It would grow so heavy, so impossibly heavy, that no human neck could bear it. Can you imagine that? A crown that wouldn't let you lie to yourself. So one day, the king was dying. He had 3 sons, 3 princes. And let me tell you, each one was convinced the crown would pick them. The first prince? Enthusiastic, strong, fast, could hunt a lion with just a spear. He'd say, "The crown is mine. I'll protect this kingdom from everything." The second prince? Brilliant with gold, with trade, made the kingdom richer than it had ever been. He'd say, "The crown is mine. I can feed everyone." The third prince knew the spirits, could read the bones, spoke with ancestors. He'd say, "The crown is mine. I understand the divine." So, who would he choose? Everyone thought they knew the answer. The nobles whispered in the marketplace. The people placed bets. Surely, it had to be one of the princes, right? The day came. The drums sounded. The sun rose gold and red. And thousands, tens of thousands of people gathered in the plaza, all waiting to see who would be crowned. The first prince stepped forward. Strong, confident. He reached down, and the crown grew heavy. So heavy, he couldn't even lift it. His face went red, and the crowd, they went silent. The second prince tried. He reaches down, and the crown grew hot. So hot it burned his hands. He cried out. He pulled away. The third prince, he's calm. He's learned. He reaches down, and the crown became slippery, like river stone. It rolled from his fingers and hit the ground with a sound like thunder. The 3 princes, all of them, rejected. The old king looked out at that crowd, and in his eyes, you could see something had broken. The answer he expected wasn't coming. Sense. And then a woman stepped forward from the crowd. Not a noble woman. You could see it in how she moved. Not stiff, not proud, but strong, like someone who'd carried weight, real weight, the weight of work. Her name was Adia. And here's the thing about Adia. For 20 years, she lived in that palace. She prepared the meals. She swept the courtyards. She mended the king's robes. No one called her by her name. They said, "Girl, fetch Water. Woman, bring cloth. You there, sweep that corner. She was invisible. The guards tried to stop her. Back, back, no common person touches the crown. But the king, knowing voice, he raised his hand and he said something that changed everything. Let her pass. The ancestors are writing this moment. We must see what they intend. The crowd was confused. Was this a test? Madness? What was happening? Adia walked slowly to the crown, and here's what she did. She knelt. Not to grab it, to look at it, the way you'd look at a child who'd fallen. And with respect, like touching something sacred, she reached out her hand, and she brushed the crown with her fingers. And the crown glowed, light, like the sun reflected in water. It began to rise, up, up, and it placed itself on her head, soft, almost magical, as gently as a mother's hand on her child's forehead. The crowd was so silent, you could hear the wind through the acacia trees. You could hear the spirits breathing. And the king, stood up, the only time he'd stood in years. And he bowed. He bowed to this woman, this keeper of fires, this mender of robes, and he said, "The crown has chosen. Adia is now queen of Ayo." But listen, not everyone was happy. The nobles came to her in the great hall, their robes rustling like 1,000 angry wasps. "How can a woman with no blood rule us?" they demanded. "How can you understand kingdoms?" And Adia, she didn't fight, didn't get angry. She just said, "I know what it is to carry water. I know what it is to serve. And I know what it feels like to have nowhere to rest. Let me prove my worth with actions." A merchant came complaining about taxes. Adia didn't just lower them. She went to the marketplace herself in her plain wrapper. She listened. She learned the taxes were too high, but the roads were broken. Bandits were attacking travelers. So what did she do? She fixed the roads, hired warriors to protect them. And you know what happened? Trade exploded. The treasury got fuller than ever before. A village came with a conflict, family against family. Adia didn't send soldiers. She went herself. She sat with them. She listened, really listened. And after 3 days, they resolved it themselves. It was stronger because it was theirs. And slowly, 1 year became 2. 2 became 3. The people began to see the truth. The crown had chosen wisely. But then came the year of shadows. From the north, where the desert begins, came an army. A warlord named Kofi, heart black as the space between stars. He'd conquered 6 kingdoms, burned their palaces, taken their wealth. Now he was coming for Ayo. His army was like a river of locusts. You couldn't see the end of it, and his name, whispered, his reputation, had spread like smoke. Mothers were holding their children close, whispering prayers. The nobles came to Adia. "Now, you must prove yourself. Send our army. We'll crush him." And Adia, she just said, "No, we will not meet him in battle." The nobles were shocked. "What madness is this? He'll destroy us." But Adia had learned something ruling those 3 years. Force can defeat force, but only wisdom can transform hearts. So she sent him a message. "Come, break bread with me before any blood is spilled." Kofi laughed. He thought she was scared. He thought she was surrendering. He came to that palace. pause with just a small guard, confident, certain that he'd won. And Adia, she met him in the great hall, alone, no guards, no ceremony. And she asked him one question that changed everything. You have conquered 6 kingdoms. Tell me, are you happy? Kofi didn't know what to say. Happy? What is happiness compared to power? And Adia, she said, everything. Because without happiness, power is just a heavy stone you carry until the day you die. Then she told him about her life, about sweeping courtyards, about mending robes, about learning to see the world through the eyes of others, building emotion. You've conquered 6 kingdoms, but have you ever served someone with love? Have you ever felt the joy of making someone's life better? And something pause happened in Kofi's chest. It was like ice breaking in spring. He remembered his mother, who served in a palace like this one, who was kind to him before he learned to be hard. Tears came to his ears. I don't want to conquer your kingdom, he said. I've conquered so many, and I'm still empty. Adia stood and extended her hand. Then help me, she said. Help me build a kingdom where the poor are fed, where the weak are protected, where wisdom matters more than swords. This is the conquest that will bring you the happiness you've been seeking. Kofi stayed, not as a conqueror, as a partner. The warlord became a protector. The man with the black heart learned to let light in. The 6 kingdoms he'd conquered were freed. Some joined Ayo in alliance. Others chose their own paths. And it all happened because one woman had the wisdom to know that force answered with force only creates endless violence. Adia ruled for 40 years. 40 years. And Ayo became known throughout all the lands as a place of justice, of prosperity. People came from far away to learn how a kingdom could be ruled with kindness instead of cruelty, with listening instead of commands, with wisdom instead of force. And when Adia grew old, she trained her successor the way she had been chosen, not by blood, but by showing the qualities that the crown required, and the crown, as it always had, chose correctly. So here's what I need you to understand. That crown didn't choose Adia because of her bloodline. It chose her because she understood that true power is the ability to see others, to listen to their pain, and to transform that pain into justice. And here's the truth they don't want you to know. A ruler's strength isn't measured by the armies that follow them. It's measured by the hearts they transform. The greatest throne is one that lifts others up. And remember this, when the world tells you that you're too small, too poor, too ordinary to matter, the crown is always watching, and it chooses those who serve, not those who seek to be served.